for you?
Well, I do think an apology is due because there's a moral debt. Britain did come to one of the richest countries on earth, and over 200 years of depredation, exploitation, neglect, managed to reduce it to a poster child for third world poverty. And we've managed to recover to a great extent from there, but that doesn't mean that a moral debt isn't owed. And I think that's why, actually, it's not so much the Prime Minister I'd like, I think a member of the royal family, because after all, everything was done in the name of the crown. Somebody should come and say, we're sorry.
What is up, amigos? Hope you're doing awesome. You know, there are very few moments in cinema that make you stop and reflect, not just on what you watched, but what it means to be a part of a nation that has inherited pain, pride, and purpose from its past. Kesari Chapter 2, the untold story of Jallianwala Bagh, is not just another patriotic film. It is a powerful reminder of a painful history that hasn't been fully acknowledged even today. It doesn't shout from the rooftops, it doesn't beat its chest, and yet it hits hard, because the truth doesn't need decoration, it only needs courage. And that courage in this film comes from one man, C. Sankaran Nair. This is a film about what happens after tragedy, after the guns stop firing, after the blood dries up on the soil of a park that once welcomed families, after an entire nation gasps in horror. Who stands up? Who fights back? Who has the spine to walk into the enemy's den and say, you are responsible and I will prove it? That's what this film captures. Not just the massacre at Jallianwala Bagh, but what followed: a courtroom war, a legal battle to shake the very foundation of the British Empire's lies, a war fought with words, with documents, with dignity. And while it's a story rooted in history, it's also about today, because even now, more than 100 years later, the British government or the Crown has not issued a proper apology. They've expressed regret, they've called it unfortunate, but they haven't owned up. Not once has there been an honest, direct, public apology from the British Crown or the Parliament saying, we did this and we are sorry. This film quietly but firmly asks that question, and it echoes loudly by the time the credits roll. So Kesari Chapter 2 is based on, but not entirely adapted by, the book The Case That Shook the Empire by Raghu Palat and Pushpa Palat, and it focuses on the story of C. Sankaran Nair, one of the boldest voices in Indian legal and political history. As per the book, in 1919, after the horrific massacre at Jallianwala Bagh, where hundreds of peaceful Indians were gunned down by General Dyer's orders, Nair resigned from the Viceroy's Executive Council in protest. But he didn't stop there. He published a book that openly criticized the British government's actions, and in return they sued him for defamation in a London court. Instead of backing down, Nair stood his ground and turned the courtroom into his battleground. However, the film here takes some creative liberties and adds some fictional characters such as Dilpreet Gill, played by Ananya Panday, who ignites the conscience of Sankaran Nair in the film after making him realize the horrors of the massacre through the families of victims of the tragedy. One such outstanding character played by a boy in his teens running his father's newspaper, who paints the horror of the genocide and tries to tell the world the truth of the day. Sankaran then visits the infamous Jallianwala Bagh and realizes the sheer magnitude of the horror, and finally decides to sue the British Empire for genocide. What follows is not just a trial, it is a global spotlight on British cruelty. The screenplay of the film respects the emotional weight of this subject. It balances the courtroom drama with glimpses of the massacre's impact without ever feeling like a history lesson or a documentary. It carefully constructs the atmosphere of those times, how fear loomed over every Indian home, how the colonial officers twisted narratives, and how Nair's act of resistance wasn't just personal, it became political. The story moves forward with some hero moments, some quietly powerful scenes, conversations, testimonies, cross-examinations, and speeches. The film never tries to romanticize Nair too much. It shows his fear, his doubt, and his anger, but also his unstoppable sense of duty. The beauty of the structure lies in how it makes the audience feel like they are sitting in that courtroom. You begin to care deeply about justice being served, not through revenge, but through exposure of the truth. This is a film where words matter, where logic and law become weapons, and where dignity is louder than any slogan. The story never drifts from its purpose. It doesn't rely too much on subplots or love stories. It stays rooted in one goal: to give voice to those who died without one. Akshay Kumar as C. Sankaran Nair gives a performance that is deeply restrained, matured, and grounded in reality. This This is not the Akshay we see in commercial action films or light comedies. This is a man carrying history on his shoulders. He plays Nair with a calm fire, a character who doesn't explode in anger, except at one point which you have seen in the teaser, who doesn't scream at injustice but instead exposes it, word by word with unwavering determination. The courtroom scenes show a different kind of heroism, the kind that stands tall under cross-examination and doesn't blink when the entire empire is on the other side. Akshay's eyes speak louder than any dramatic monologue. His pauses have power, his walk has weight. It's his best performance in years according to me. R. Madhavan plays Barrister Neville McKinley, representing the empire, but his presence brings complexity to the British side of the narrative. He's not painted as evil, he's intelligent, he's sharp, and he's confident, but also represents the mindset of a colonial superiority. Madhavan doesn't try to overdo it. He brings class and firmness, making the courtroom scenes engaging and not one-sided. You can feel the tension between him and Akshay, two dignified men fighting for two different truths. Surprisingly, Ananya Panday delivers a respectable performance as Dilreet Gill, a young legal aid who supports Nair's efforts. She brings a subtle emotional layer to the film, not forced, not overacted. She represents a generation that wants justice to be more than symbolic. Regina Cassandra, playing Nair's wife Parvati, also gives us tender moments that show how political battles often take personal tolls. The entire cast works in harmony, never overshadowing the real hero, that is, the story itself. A special mention to the young boy Krish Rao, who plays Pargat Singh, a brilliant young mind who fights to expose the deliberate plan behind the genocide, and Simon Paisley Day playing Dyer, who you will instantly start hating. Well, look at the irony, his name is Simon. Anyway, moving on. Karan Singh Tyagi deserves all the credit for handling a subject like this with grace, patience, and control. There is just the right amount of drama to get you to connect with the characters emotionally. The background score is brilliant, accompanying the emotional scenes or the tension-filled courtroom drama. No artificial slow motion, everything is earned. Every emotional scene, every tense moment, every silence. The film doesn't jump between timelines too many times just for effect either. It flows like a careful argument, leading to an emotionally charged and justified climax. It literally gave me goosebumps. Tyagi doesn't try to impress, he tries to express, and that makes the film so powerful. The writing is tight and respectful. Dialogues doesn't sound like textbook history, they feel human, believable. Nair's monologues, especially in the final act, are written like truth being told after 100 years of silence. There are no slogans, no chest-thumping lines, just raw facts, heartfelt questions, and piercing logic. That's what makes the film linger in your mind even after it ends. The truth is so powerful here, it doesn't need decoration. Devojit Ray's cinematography gives us a grey, heavy atmosphere, from the silent pain of Jallianwala Bagh to the wooden courtrooms. There is no overuse of visual effects or filters. Everything looks real, lived in, and heavy with history. The music by Shashwat Sachdev and the composition by Kavita and Kanishk Seth are quietly haunting. They don't tell you what to feel, they just allow space for you to feel it yourself. I just wish there was more of Teri Mitti Mein Mil Jawa in the film, but it's just a small piece as a background. But B. Prak singing this song can still make you stand up and shout, Inqilab Zindabad. Goosebumps again. So eventually, the film ends, but the anger doesn't, because the truth is, even after more than a century, there has been no formal apology from the British Crown or its government for the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. What kind of empire kills thousands of innocent people, including women and children, and walks away without a proper sorry? David Cameron visited the site and called it a deeply shameful event. Theresa May also did the same, repeated the same line in Parliament. But regret is not apology. Regret is not responsibility. Regret is not acceptance. This is where the film connects the past to our present. When a nation cannot accept what it had done, how can it call itself evolved? The silence of the British Crown is not just about diplomacy or politics. It is about pride, ego, and perhaps the unwillingness to truly look back. But history is not erased by staying silent. It stays, it festers, and it gets told again through films like this, through books, through speeches, through every Indian who says, we have moved on, but we have not forgotten. Shashi Tharoor has been one of the loudest and most eloquent voices calling for colonial accountability. His book, Inglorious Empire, lays down in simple, hard-hitting language just how much India suffered, not just in terms of massacres and violence, but also in stolen wealth, culture, and dignity. He has repeatedly asked the British government to issue an apology, not for revenge, but for acknowledgement. In his famous Oxford speech, Tharoor said, "The sun never sets on the British Empire because even God couldn't trust the English in the dark." That wasn't just a punchline, it was truth layered in sarcasm. And he he's right. What harm is there in simply accepting responsibility and offering a genuine apology to the people of India? It costs nothing, but it gives dignity to the lives lost. If you would like to read Shashi Tharoor's book, Inglorious Empire, I will leave a link to it in the description below. Now, Kesari Chapter 2 is not just a movie, it is a message, a reminder, an experience, a quiet protest on behalf of every silent voice lost in history. It tells us about a man who fought without an army, without political power, and without a single weapon, just the truth on his side. It makes us proud of our past, but more importantly, it reminds us to ask the questions that still don't have answers. If you haven't watched Kesari Chapter 2 yet, I encourage you to do so. It's a film that not only educates but also inspires. Let it serve as a catalyst for discussions about historical accountability and the importance of acknowledging past wrongs. And to the British government and monarchy, this is not about politics, this is about humanity. A simple apology cannot undo the pain, but it can finally show that you see it, that you accept it, that you are, at the very least, sorry. Not regretful, not saddened, just sorry. And to everyone watching, if this film moved you, if it made you feel even a pinch of that historic pain or pride, then talk about it. Watch the film in theaters and get more people to watch it if you can, not because it's trending, but because it's needed. Thank you for watching us today. Please do like, share and subscribe to the channel for more such honest content. Do support the channel with a super thanks if possible. Take care and bye-bye.